welcome to the August 16th, 2016 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. If you haven't already done so, there are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. Please feel free to pick up a copy and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment under item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. Any members of the audience who have questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, that would be your opportunity to come to the podium, tell us who you are, and we will welcome hearing from you at that point in time. Now, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, so I would like to ask everyone to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for joining us. With that, I would like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Patino.
Here.
Commissioner Jose.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Mayor Tully.
Here, thank you. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to our review and adoption of minutes from prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes tonight on the agenda from August 9th, 2016. If there are no changes, corrections, or comments with respect to those minutes, may I have a motion to approve, please?
Mayor Tully, I move that we approve the minutes of August 9th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Terrific, those minutes are approved. And just like that, we're at item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. If any members of the audience have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, please come down to the podium, introduce yourself, and we welcome hearing from you. Any questions or comments of a general nature at this time? Seeing that it's far too nice out for comments of a general nature, we'll move right to item number 5, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? I believe we have a comment in progress. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, friends and neighbors. My name is Tom LeCren, 545 Chicago Avenue, Downers Grove. I wanted to talk about these 3 questions that we're going to have to vote on in November. It would seem to me that given the wording as it exists, you could end up with 3 yes votes. That makes no sense to me. It would be simpler in one way to say you must vote Y for one and no for the other 2. That way you get the meaning, or you want the results that you want. You want to know what the majority of the people in Downers Grove want. Seems to me on another side, it would have been much simpler just to have one question. How shall Downers Grove, et cetera, pay for stormwater projects? Pick one of the following. Then there's no choice, no possibility. I'm not sure whether the election commission would allow it to be worded that way. It seems to me it would be much, much more simple. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and as you'll probably recall, we did spend a fair amount of time with the wording of these questions. They went through the washer and the dryer a couple of times. And you are correct, there are certain limitations and parameters on the form of the question. So while there might be some ideal forms we would like to use, we can't necessarily do that unless allowed by the DuPage County Election Commission. With that said, I think these are probably as good as they're going to get under those circumstances. And the other thing I would point out is that if we did get yes to all 3, I would actually find that quite instructive. I think there are a number of different combinations that would send, at least in my mind, useful guidance, including that the community wants the council to decide. Other questions or comments of a general nature with respect, other questions or comments with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Well, thank you for that comment. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Aye.
Commissioner Patino.
Aye.
Commissioner Jose.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Tully.
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6, our active agenda. We have 3 items on tonight's active agenda, A, B, and C. First, item 6A, Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation status for 4502 Prince Street?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 4502 Prince Street as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from members of the council?
Another happy evening.
Dare I say giddy? Only question I had is, do we have a certificate or a plaque to present at this point in time?
Not yet, but it's on order.
Not yet. One is coming? All right, well, I'm still going to ask, after we vote, with my colleagues' permission, if the petitioner would like to maybe come up and tell us a little bit about the historic home. If not, that's fine, no obligation, just extend that offer. If you come down, I'll know that you want to. If you don't, then I know better. I, once again, just want to thank all those who have taken advantage of the eased path for seeking historic preservation designation status, landmark designation status in our community. Thank you for doing that. We are adding to the inventory to have 2 on the agenda tonight, and I think we'll see many more to come. So we really appreciate your doing this on behalf of yourself and on behalf of the community. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Walden?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatima?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes unanimously. It brings us to item 6B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1130 Franklin Street?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1130 Franklin Street as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the council? And again, if anyone from the petitioner wishes to share anything about the home with us, that'd be great, but again, no obligation. Please. I think both we and the folks at home would love the education. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. I am Cindy Zeski. I live at 1130 Franklin Street. The Corinne S. Foot House was built in 1892. It'll be 124 years old, August 27th. So this is kind of a nice birthday present. I moved into the home about 4 years ago, and it was known as the mistress's home, so it kind of piqued my curiosity. Apparently what happened was Emerson Foote, the husband, died 2 weeks before they moved in, and he was the partner of E.H. Prince, who helped develop our historic subdivision. And from my research, there was no love affair. We have no written proof, because I know the family, I found them.
There was no Facebook back then.
There was no Facebook. There was the local paper, but it wasn't in there either. So I think we're pretty safe to say they just remained business partners and family friends until they both died, frankly. It's an interesting home. It has its original footprint, except for the back stairs. It has not been brought into, I mean, it's all updated, but the layout has not been changed, which is very rare. The other 3 houses that were built with it, they were originally the 4 first homes built for the subdivision. It was supposed to be like their spec homes as well. They have all been changed. So it's kind of the only one that's there that's original from 124 years ago. I could go on for hours, so I'll stop there. If you're interested, I have a book this big with the history of the family and the original map of the Downers Grove is in my home, as well as another one that was donated to the museum. The original costs of the properties and the lots. The original booklet is at the museum as well. It was given to them by the Foote family. So.
Terrific.
So.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much, because now it's here forever. And it's a gift to Downers Grove.
Absolutely, and thank you for presenting it. Congratulations, and thank you for doing that research, and thank you for sharing it with us. It's greatly appreciated. With that, roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Walden?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatima?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously. Congratulations. That brings us to item 6C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance adopting the 2014 National Electric Code?
With less giddiness, I move that this council adopt an ordinance adopting the 2014 National Electric Code.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments from the members of the Village Council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldron?
Aye.
Commissioner Petrino? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously and brings us to the end of our active agenda. And to the beginning of item 7, our first reading or workshop agenda. We have about 7 items on tonight's first reading or workshop agenda. And this is a more informal portion of our meeting where items are presented for discussion and consideration purposes only. No final action will be taken at this time. I flip things around a little bit in this context. There'll be a presentation from either staff or the petitioner involved. I'll first let the council have an opportunity to ask questions from staff or the petitioner, and then we'll open it up for questions or comments from the audience before coming back to the Village Council for any final questions or comments. Again, no action, formal action will be taken at tonight's meeting. As is customary, I usually turn it over to our village manager, David Fieldman, to oversee the presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you so much for the introduction. The first item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance authorizing a special use for the property at 1620 Ogden Avenue. Here to present background information on this petition is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. The first item, as Manager Fieldman noted, is a special use for an automobile dealership at 1620 Ogden, northwest side of town, between Downers Drive and Lee Avenue. It's the former McDonald's site. The petitioner is proposing to repurpose the building and the site into an automobile dealership. The proposal is to keep the building intact as it is with some minor exterior work, including the addition of a garage door on the west side of the building to pull a car into a small showroom, and then to remove the drive-through window, so there's no drive-through there as well. Site improvements, I'm showing the landscape plan because that shows what they're proposing to do most clearly, is increase landscaping around the entire property to bring the site in conformance with landscape standards, and then also some additional fencing around the north and the east property lines, which are existing fenced because there's adjacent to residential there. This auto turn exhibit provided from the petitioner shows that an auto car carrier will be able to go onto the site and drop cars off onto the site, so not onto Ogden Avenue, and then maneuver around the site with the 2 existing curb cuts are there. With regard to the comprehensive plan, the site is within our corridor commercial designation. This use is an auto-related use, and it will improve the aesthetics along Ogden Avenue here with some improvements in the landscaping there as well. The petition complies with the special use standards as noted on the screen above you. The petitioner is here to answer any questions, and I'm available for any questions as well.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The next 2 items concern the property at 2200 Warrenville Road, and Stan will also present these items.
Welcome back.
Long time no see. So for the rezoning and special use request here at 2200 Warrenville Road, properties at the northwest corner again of Downers Grove, here at the intersection of Warrenville Road and Finley Roads. It's the former Perkins-Elmer facility here at the intersection. The request tonight is for a rezoning from the M1 Light Manufacturing Zoning District to an ORM Office Research and Manufacturing Zoning District, and then also for a special use to approve a parking ratio of 7.2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. The zoning ordinance has a maximum allowance of 4.5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, and anything over that requested parking ratio requires a special use. And this is just to ensure that the proposal is consistent with how much parking they need and not to create a sea of parking and additional asphalt. So this is a conceptual plan. Again, this is just a concept development that they've provided us to show some graphics of what they're requesting. Conceptually, it's a 2-story, 84,000 square foot Class A office building. This is a site layout which shows how the building will be laid out conceptually on the site and then conceptually the parking lot. So they're requesting based on the size of a building, about up to 605 cars, which is the 7.2 ratio. And they're requesting this basically because the current market to get a Class A office space, you find that they're packing more employees into a smaller space. So where an employee used to have a larger office, they're getting a smaller office, and we have shared spaces and collaborative spaces, so they can get more employees in and a higher employee density. And so this is really, in relationship to that, asking for more parking out here, and then also to address some of the technology advances that are in offices today. So that's why we're seeing the increased employee density, which warrants additional parking ratios that they're requesting. So then, additionally, they're rezoning this to bring it more into compliance with the comprehensive plan, which calls for this to be office corporate campus, similar to the Esplanade, the corridors, and Highland Landmark. And the Esplanade and corridors are zoned office research manufacturing. So that's the proper zoning, we believe, to have this go into a Class A office space. Comp plan is noted up here, looks for high quality, good accessibility, and an office complex that's similar to those, and we believe this proposal meets that as well. Both requests are consistent with the zoning ordinance and the criteria shown on the screen behind me and behind yourselves there. So again, the petitioner's here if there's any questions specifically for him, or if there's any questions I can answer as well.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? I'll just wrap up by saying I think that's an appropriate use and an appropriate zoning classification for this portion of town, and appreciate the background explanation for the market forces that are driving the need for increased density in terms of parking.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next item, please.
The next item, item D, is consideration of an ordinance that would amend the brew facility liquor license classification. Simply put, this ordinance would permit live entertainment to take place at these licensed facilities. The current ordinance does not allow this. Enza and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? I'll just point out that this was something, and then I'll ask for questions or comments from the audience. This was something that appeared to be somewhat of an oversight, because there are establishments that are in town with licenses now that allow for lack of a better word, the individual on a stool playing guitar, and it happens all the time without any incident. And it appeared there were some of these categories that just, this particular category, for whatever reason, omitted that. That is all that's really being sought here, is my understanding, just in case anybody was wondering, is the ability to have someone playing a guitar in the corner. I don't expect Bon Jovi to be showing up anytime soon.
I just sit in the corner and play guitar.
I think there's a song by that name. Questions or comments from members of the audience? Hearing none, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The next three items concern the property at 5100 Forest, and they will be presented by Stan Popovich. Stan.
Good evening again.
Hello again.
Yes, I got a nice little break. So the next three items, as Dave mentioned, regard 5100 Forest, the Burlington Station development here at the corner of Burlington and Forest Avenue. Item E relates to a 6-month request for an extension of the special use approval that was granted August 18th, 2015. Zoning ordinance requires a special use that it lapses after 1 year unless a building permit's been issued, a certificate of occupancy has been issued, or the use has been established. In this case, we've been working with the petitioner for the past year to develop plans. They have plans in that are currently under review. We just won't have the building permit issued by Thursday. So that's the first request. And so we believe that's a warranted request. We've been making good progress with them to get this building permitted. The next two items relate to the reduction of the required park and school donations that the council directed staff to amend the two ordinances at the last meeting. So those sections have been amended and are presented tonight for your review. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time as well, and the petitioner's here as well.
Thank you. And so this is items 7, E, F, and G.
Yes.
Questions or comments from the council on items E, F, or G? Questions from the audience on any of those items? Hearing none.
Just like that, that's our first reading, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It brings us to the end of our workshop agenda. On to item 8, the mayor's report. I would only have one thing to report unless the manager is going to be talking about tonight's mosquito spraying.
Please.
Well, then I guess I will do it. I'm sure everyone in the community received an automated phone call, or most of you at least who have signed up for it, received a phone call last night from the voice of Downers Grove, AKA Doug Kozlowski, advising everyone that the Clark Mosquito Control will be spraying for adult mosquitoes tonight, August 16th, weather permitting. Just looking out the window, weather looks permitting to me. The spraying will begin at approximately 8:30 p.m., so in about an hour, and we'll cover all streets within incorporated Downers Grove, and that should be accomplished by early dawn. Mosquito samples from traps monitored by the DuPage County Health Department have tested positive for West Nile virus. As a result, surrounding communities and Downers Grove will be spraying to reduce the adult mosquito population over the next several days. Just in case anyone wasn't aware of that, wanted to make sure that folks were. That should be starting in about an hour and be continuing throughout the evening. That ends my report, and we'll go to item 9, Village Manager's Report. Mr. Fieldman?
Thank you again, Mayor. No report tonight.
Very good, thank you. That brings us to item 10, Village Attorney's Report. Ms. Petrarca, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. 7 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance authorizing a special use for 1620 Ogden Avenue to permit an automobile dealership. An ordinance rezoning certain property located at 2200 Warrenville Road. An ordinance authorizing a special use to exceed the maximum parking ratio at the property located at 2200 Warrenville Road. An ordinance amending the brew facility license classification. An ordinance authorizing an extension to a special use to authorize construction of a multifamily structure at 5100 Forest Avenue to February 18th, 2017. An ordinance amending ordinance number 5475, amending designating planning and development 53 and authorizing the construction of a multifamily structure with deviations at 5100 Forest. And an ordinance amending ordinance number 5476, authorizing a special use for 5100 Forest Avenue. That is all, Mayor. They will all be on September 6th at the gym. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 11, council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to report out either items of interest or other goings-on in the community, or to report out something of relevance to the council based on their role as liaisons with other entities. Start with Commissioner Barnett tonight. Any report?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner White.
No report.
Commissioner Vitimo.
No report.
Commissioner Waldak.
No report.
And Commissioner Jose.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further report. That brings us to item 12. Do I have a motion to convene into executive session pursuant to 2C3 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act regarding the selection of a person to fill a public office?
Bartoli, I move that this council convene in the closed session pursuant to Section 2C3 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the selection of a person to fill the village office which the village council was given power to appoint under law.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. We are convened into closed session. Thank you for attending. We are reconvened back into open session from executive session. We are on the record in open session. We'll now revisit item 13 of our agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution appointing a person to fill a public office?
So moved. I think we need to read the resolution correctly.
We need a second.
Second.
And may I ask the village clerk to please read the resolution?
A resolution appointing Margaret A. Earl as a village commissioner. Whereas Mr. David S. Olson has heretofore been elected and qualified as a commissioner of the Village of Downers Grove, DuPage County, Illinois, for a term ending April 30, 2017, and whereas Commissioner David S. Olson has heretofore resigned as such commissioner effective August 3, 2016, and whereas upon the occurrence of such vacancy, the remaining members of the Village Council have the power and authority to fill such vacancy in accordance with applicable law by appointment of some person to the office of Commissioner for the balance of the unexpired term of Commissioner David S. Olson, and whereas the remaining members have reviewed the qualifications of a number of persons for the purpose of filling such vacancy and have determined to exercise such power of appointment, now therefore be it resolved by the remaining members of the Council of the Village of Downers Grove, DuPage County, Illinois, that Margaret A. Earl is hereby appointed as a Commissioner of the Village of Downers Grove, effective as of the date of adoption of this resolution, to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of former Commissioner David S. Olson for the unexpired portion of his term in office expiring April 30, 2017. Be it further resolved that all resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict with the provisions of this resolution are hereby repealed. Dated August 16, 2016.
Thank you. Thank you for reading that. And before calling for for comments or a vote, I want to just thank everybody who participated in this process. We were very fortunate to have 14 individuals submit written materials and other requirements for consideration for the position. And this council had a lot of good stuff to look at, a lot of good stuff to work at. We did narrow it down to a smaller group for purposes of interviews, and interviewed some really outstanding residents, some who've had prior experience with the village, some who have not. We were really impressed with all the passion that they expressed to serve their community at another level, and the process was one in trying to come to some plurality or consensus, as most things we do are. I had said from the beginning, at least from my perspective, that I wanted to do this swiftly so that we could start September with a full council. We have a lot of important issues in front of us. I realize not everybody shares that view. But regardless of what anyone thinks, one way or the other, in the springtime, the people will get to choose themselves. I just wanted to thank on both my behalf and my colleagues, everyone who participated. It is a considerable undertaking to put one's self in the ring, either for election or for appointment to public office. It is not something that many people do lightly, and so we greatly respect and appreciate everybody who did so as part of this process, and hope that they all continue to stay involved or pursue future opportunities to be involved in serving the community. With that, if there are any other questions or comments before asking for a roll call? Commissioner Barnett?
Mayor, I'm not prepared to vote tonight, and so I think I'd like to just explain that, so it's not a question later. Mayor wrapped up appropriately, and he's right. Everything he said was right. We had plenty of candidates, qualified candidates. Process was efficient, and we do appreciate everyone who's here tonight, everyone who isn't here tonight that applied for the job. What I take issue with is that I'm not convinced that the expeditious nature was necessary. I don't share the urgency that my colleagues share. And to that end, we missed some people. We had candidates who missed the opportunity to submit. I commented on that a couple weeks ago. We had candidates that would have provided more diversity of opinion that weren't interviewed by this group. We had candidates with similar qualifications who also were not afforded the opportunity to go through an interview process. And I think that was because we were trying to be expeditious. But this council and this village and this staff and our residents would survive the second week of September. They would survive the third week of August. They would survive the first week of October, with 6 of us sitting up here. To suggest otherwise, I think does a disservice, or discounts at least, the skill sets and the not the integrity, but the efforts of all the rest of the council and of our staff. I think we missed an opportunity to do our best. That is not to say that tonight's appointment is not the best candidate. It may well be. What I'm not sure is of that. And I don't feel like we went through a process that afforded all those who might serve and all those who are qualified to serve the same opportunities to be evaluated. So that's disappointing. We didn't touch on some subjects in our evaluation, whether it be via the questionnaire or via the interview process. We didn't seek opinions, and it was intentional of the body, and it's a disagreement between myself and my colleagues, but we didn't ask for opinions on stormwater. We didn't ask for opinions on facilities. We didn't ask for opinions on downtown development zoning or historic preservation. We didn't ask anybody to chime in on those and to tell us their thoughts on them. I don't know how we think that's okay, given the magnitude of those issues and the amount of time and resources they've consumed over the last 2-3 years. So we're going to go forward tonight, and we'll go forward positively, and we'll go forward capably, just like we could have done, in my opinion, in a couple of weeks. But tonight, I'm not going to vote no, because that's not my answer. My answer is I'm not ready to vote, and so I'll be voting present tonight. But I wanted to explain that. So that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, want to thank all the candidates who applied for this position. I was thoroughly impressed by several of them, and certainly impressed at the very least by the overall results and the outreach from folks that were very interested in the process. I have some quibbles with the process. I felt it was too rapid, not necessarily the application period, but the fact that things moved very quickly yesterday and almost didn't get to today was concerning to me. I felt that things were a little closed-minded, and that was disappointing to me. But that said, I have no qualms with the qualifications of the person selected tonight, and I will vote in favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Not to belabor the point, the only thing I'll just emphasize is it was very important to me in this process, and clearly we can disagree about the speed at which it occurred, but I made that very clear from day one. And I respect anyone who disagrees with that viewpoint. As our new member and any future members will quickly learn, is that we often have differences of opinion on this dais, as we do have differences of opinions on the audience. But I do want to correct one thing to the extent that there may be a misconception. It was very important that all of us participated in the interview process. All of us participated in the review of the resumes. We didn't have a subcommittee, and everyone had an opportunity to ask questions. I led the questioning because that was, again, expeditious. But each of us up here had opportunities to ask questions in the process, understanding that some would have liked it to have been more extenuated. And that's merely an agreement to disagrei. But again, thank you for everyone who participated, and thank you to my colleagues for the extra time above and beyond that they spent participating in this project, in this process. It was appreciated. I know everybody carved out additional time from their schedules, particularly with August vacations and whatnot. So thank you very much for your participation as well. And with that, I'd like to call for a roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Patimo?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Present.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes 5 to present.
One abstention.
I'm only pausing because I don't think I've ever said that, and I wasn't sure how, but its effect is understood. There being no further business, well, one thing I should probably note is we have no further business tonight, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, can I interject? Would it be appropriate to give the appointee the opportunity to say a word or two?
I was actually about to say that while that certainly would be okay, I was going to suggest that...
We can not meet tomorrow.
Well, that too.
Another good point.
Maybe if you guys let me finish.
I'm getting...
A motion to adjourn was about to hit the table, and it's always in order, so I figured I'd speak up.
And non-debatable. Although we don't have the Roberts cop here anymore to tell us what we can and can't do.
That's my first note.
I said I will be calling for a motion to adjourn shortly. But yes, we had, to the extent that we needed it, I think we had noticed a meeting for tomorrow. That was only if we needed it for purpose of this process. I think we had also contemplated possibly a special meeting next week if we needed it. We just wanted to be prepared. This isn't like a court hearing where we need to strike the date or anything like that. Just let everyone know that we're not meeting tomorrow, having brought this process to a conclusion tonight. To Commissioner Jose's question, I was certainly would if I was trying to think of the correct title. If Commissioner Earl would like to say something, that's fine. There's no obligation. What I was going to say is we would probably take up most of what would be surrounding someone coming to the dais during the swearing in September. But
Fair point. I was just thinking of the commission appointments. And
well, apparently your suggestion is a good one because good evening
Hi,
for the last
Marge.
time at the podium.
Marge Earl, 4720 Florence Avenue.
Commissioner Earl.
I should make you sit up here.
I'm humbled, I'm honored. I appreciate your confidence in me. I have big shoes to fill. I don't know that I can be everywhere all the time, like the 3 David Olsons we used to have. And I thank you for the opportunity to expand my service to the village. Good night.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And to continue what I was saying, with respect to when swearing in would take place, I believe it is our again, desire that Commissioner Earl will be sworn in at our next meeting and seated that night and attend and participate fully in all the business from that point on. Again, with the desire of getting to full strength as quickly as possible. Now I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned for good. Good night.